Okay, take two. So imagine the golden jelly in between your hands. This is going to be the light of life. This is the ka, the energy that we already have. Okay. So now inhale and expand it. And now exhale and squeeze it gently. Get your hands close. And then inhale again. See it expand. And then exhale. Get your hands close and begin to move your hands a little bit side to side. You should be beginning to feel like a little magnetism between your hands, between the tips of your fingers. Inhale one more time. Put your attention in between your hands. And then exhale. Just move your hands like this, side to side. You should be able to feel a gooiness, a magnetism in between your fingers, especially if you move them around. It's a connecting point in between all of them. Right now, I can feel it, and you can squeeze it and release a little bit and squeeze it and release a little bit and then squeeze it. So it's a tangibility. It's an energetical tangibility, right? And then we're going to be playing with this whole time. So hopefully you guys could hear it, could feel it. Yeah, was anyone able to feel it? Just give me a thumbs up or write it in the chat. Yes, awesome, you guys. That is the ka, right? That is the substance of our light body. And we need to continue to play with that thing. Okay, so here we go. It's gonna be a little bit crazy. Hold on with me, all right? Okay, so we are going to start with Moses and Egypt. This first part, I got a lot of inspiration for an author called Sir Lawrence Gardner. Okay, so I just want to give him props for this beginning inspiration part. So Moses and Egypt. As you guys know, when Moses grabbed everyone out of Egypt, right? All of the Hebrews out of Egypt, they were in the desert for all of this time. And they went over to Mount Sinai, and that's where he got given the Ten Commandments, right? What's very interesting to know is that Mount Sinai was a part of Egypt then. That territory was still a part of Egypt. So in the 1900s, there was this archaeologist called Sir Lindus Petrie, and he wanted to go to Mount Sinai to see what he could find as being inspired by what he read in the Bible. So he grabbed a bunch of money and a huge team, and they went to Mount Sinai, what is called today Serabit El Kadim. It's his Arab name, because now it's part of Saudi Arabia. And they went as the first archaeological expedition into Mount Sinai to see what was there, to see what Moses and them were playing with and what they were interacting with. And they found an Egyptian temple. All the way at the top of the mountain, there was a plain, 13,000 foot above the sea level, and they found a temple. It's called the Temple of Hathor. And Hathor is the Egyptian deity of the mother god, kind of like their equivalent of Holy Spirit. It's their mother deity that formed and feeds everyone. So, okay, wait a second. There was an Egyptian temple where Moses went and took all of the Hebrews as they were escaping Egypt. What else was in this temple? So they were able to map it out and draw it out, right? It's called Serabit El Kadim now, but it was the Temple of Hathor, and it had multiple rooms, and it had crucibles inside of it, and like crucibles is where you melt metals, and it looked like a workshop. And in some of the later chambers where they were, right, and this is an insignia of Hathor, is the female deity, the female god. And what they were able to find in there, in all of these chambers over here, was a very fine white powder. Tons of it. And this white powder, when you touched it, it would disappear into your fingers. It was so fine. And I'm like, what is happening over here? What is this white powder that's inside an Egyptian temple on Mount Sinai? And what is Moses doing there, taking all of the Hebrews there? Okay. In the Egyptian hieroglyphic, in the Egyptian hieroglyphic uh, um, um, lore, and not only in the lore, but in what we know of the translations, they called this substance the mufkuts, or the what is it. So hold on to that, okay? It was called the firestone, the what is it, the mufkuts, or the milk of Hathor. So this what is it is going to get very interesting as we keep going along. So I'm going to grab this idea of gold, and gold held a divine status, and it symbolized eternity and the flesh of the gods for the Egyptians. And mufkut is described as the white bread, right? And we know it's white because they saw the powder, or the shimmering powder that they offered their deities and consumed by the pharaohs, so they would align their spirit or their cow with the divine. I'm like, okay, wait a second. This is getting very interesting over here. Let's see what else they found. So when we start reading the inscriptions in the Temple of Hathor, in the pyramids, in the Book of the Dead, in the Temple of Karnak, just our known archaeology, this mufkuts, or white powder, they fed it to the pharaohs. And they said that this gave them prolonged life, and that it activated their multidimensionality, and it itself was a multidimensional field, a multidimensional space called the field of Mufkuts, or the plane of reeds, or the plane of blessing. And supposedly that's where the pharaohs would go once they quote unquote died. It was a place that was multidimensional, that when you ingested this mufkuts, or white powder, you could go there. So wait, what? Moses was there? Okay, let's keep going a little bit. So in the hieroglyphic record, that was the word I was looking for, the record, they display this white powder in these little triangles, right? These little piles of the white powder. And they would often associate it with bread. And they would call it the bread of the presence, and they would associate it with grain, right? Many of the priests would bring it to the leaders in these cones, right? And then you could see it again at Karnak. And then they found an inscription, right? This is the inscription that they found at the Temple of Hathor, where it's being brought and fed to the leaders. And this inscription over here, what it says is, Shebehotep brings the noble and precious stone to his majesty. He is guardian of the bread because he is the great one of the house of gold. So like, okay, wait a second. There's this stone that apparently got grounded into fine powder that is given as bread, but it's also related to gold. It's getting interesting. What's happening here? Moses knew all of this. In Acts 7:32, it says, so Moses was educated in all the wisdom of the Egyptians and was powerful in speech and in action. Another name for Moses is Akhenaten. That's his Egyptian name, right? He was Egyptian as well as he was Hebrew. So he knew all of this stuff. He knew where he was taking them. Remember the whole thing with the golden calf? So when Moses is up Mount Sinai, arguably interacting with the temple of Hathor, right? When he came back down, he was mad because everyone had grabbed their gold and melted it and formed the white calf and started worshiping it, right? And Moses was so mad that, remember what he did? Was so mad that while he was talking to God, they actually made another figure to revere and worship. What did Moses do? He took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. Then he grounded it to a powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. Wait a second. You can't, wait, how are you going to melt gold into a powder? So here we are again with the same thing that the Egyptians was saying, that there's a relationship between the gold and the white powder that's ingestible. What do you mean they ate the gold? Moses knew the secrets of the Egyptian schools, the order of Moses, that there is a way to turn gold through the fire, because there were crucibles up top, into this white powder. The same white powder that was given to the deities. And then he burned the golden calf, mixed it with water, and made the Israelites drink it. It's getting very weird, you guys. And of course, he knew all of this stuff. And then guess what happens next? As they continue their trek around the desert, then God begins to feed them with a manna. White powder mixed with water and coriander and honey to form little cakes. In this case, they're little circular cakes. In some other cases, there may be little cones. That evening, quail came down and covered the camp, right? When the dew was gone, a layer of dew around the camp, when the dew was gone, thin flakes frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" The same meaning as mufkuts. For they did not know what it was. And then Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." Those connections are beginning to be a little too big, y'all. And as we keep going through this, obviously I'm illuminating a thing, not stating actual theology, right? We're at a place of a maturity where we can hold what we're learning, and obviously we can disagree with each other. But look at this. It's the what is it? It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. And it's the same structure as the mufkuts. And then if we jump over to the New Testament, right? When after Jesus, Paul is retelling this story, he says, all ate the same what? Spiritual food, and all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank of the spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. This is the same thing. And this is what Paul is saying, literally recounting the story of Moses. So whether with the Egyptians, whether with Moses, whether they're recounting it in the New Testament, they're all saying that it's spiritual food, that it's based out of a molten gold that becomes a white powder. And that's the shape of the manna or the mufkuts. And again, and then again with the rock. And that rock was Christ. Okay. So now let's keep going. Hold that thought and now we're going to jump timeline, right, to the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So in Phoenix, Arizona, there was a farmer called David Hudson. Is this guy. Yeah, and because Phoenix is so arid, he was having trouble breaking through the soil, right? And his seeds weren't sprouting. So he started experimenting with the top layer of the soil with acids to see if he could break it through, and then maybe the seed could go in, right? And as he continued to experiment with all of these things, one day he comes back to his fields and realizes that there is a crust all up top of his land of a black powder that all of a sudden, when the light hit it, would explode. And when it would explode, it would become a white powder. So he's like, wait a second, what is all of this? And they were pretty wealthy, right? So he's like, what is this? What is this powder that all of a sudden it's coming from the ground in my territory? So he grabbed it and started studying it. Yeah, the first study that he did is called spectrography, which means that as you burn the substance, it tells you what it is. Okay, so just think about if you have a car engine and you start burning the car engine, what's the first thing that's gonna burn? Well, any water that's in there, right? So then the spectrography would say, hey, that's water. Well, no, keep burning it. And as you keep burning it, oh, maybe any residual oil will burn. And as the oil burns, the spectrography reads, oh, actually, it wasn't water, actually, it was oil. Okay, keep burning it. And then eventually the motor, the metal would burn. And then the spectrography would say, oh, it's actually metal, right? So the higher you burn it, the more intense the heat, the more you can tell what the thing is. So he started doing the spectrography on this white powder. And as it was burning, it would start to read as silica. And as he kept going even way more heat, it started then reading as palladium and ruthenium, all of the noble metals, and iridium. And he's like, what is going on here? Like, what is this? What do you mean iridium and palladium? Right? And the better his spectrographic tools and the more that he would burn it, eventually it started to read as gold. It started to read as gold, as a white powder. So then from that, once I'm just grabbing my notes. Once he's like, wait a second, the more that I burn it, it's changing what the thing is, and eventually it lands on gold. Then they started doing another type of test. It's called a thermogravimetric analyzer. What they would do is that they would grab this little white powder, okay, put it inside of a pan and start weighing it. Sometimes it weighed less than 0. Sometimes, even while we were recording the weight of the pan, it would read that it weighed 0. Then sometimes, randomly, then it would weigh a fraction of the whole thing. And then it would weigh the full amount again. So they're like, wait a second, what is this material that sometimes weighs less and less than 0? This doesn't make any sense. Like what's actually happening here with what this material is, and where does the weight go? So inevitably, Mr. Hudson, starting connecting the dots that we're talking about today, and he began to theorize that it was actually mufkuts. Because if mufkuts was known to have a field, a realm that would actually take your being to that realm, by definition, it has multidimensionality. And the multidimensionality is the only thing that would make weight not be consistent. So he started to go down the same path of Mufkuts and Manna and Egypt, but he actually had the thing and he would watch it transpose into another reality, become multidimensional, right? And the Egyptians would say that it had levitation properties. And the crazy thing is that and sometimes it would disappear from the pan. Not only would it not weigh the correct amount, it would disappear. And sometimes it would appear back, but in the same order that it was when you measured it the first time. So he's like, what is going on, y'all? So he kept, they had a lot of money, right? So he kept continuing to study this and like hiring the world's best scientists, continued to study it. And he got to the point that they were starting to understand its molecular structure. And it was something called monoatomic, right? So if you go back to high school, right, we have the molecule, and the molecule has multiple atoms, and it has the electrons around it, right, and the protons around it, right? And what's beginning to appear is that while that is one structure of matter, there's also a monoatomic structure of matter where it can exist not in a molecule base, but as a single atom. And while it exists in a single atom, it's technically still gold, AU um in the chemical table, right? AU. While it's still gold, it's not representing as metal. Molecular gold represents itself as metal. Monoatomic gold represents itself as the white powder. So it's the same element representing itself in two ways: a 3D metallic structure in a seemingly multidimensional uniatomic format. And he called it ORMs, orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements, or ORMUS. And he patented. And he realized how to do it, because all of this study that he did got to the point that he knew how much heat it needed to actually continue to morph itself into its monatomic state. The same thing that Moses did way back when. He burned down the gold until it was a white powder, mixed it with water, and then fed it to them. So this guy, right, begins to attract the attention of all of the governments of the world. And he has since disappeared. Some say he's died, some say he hasn't died yet, but he's like completely secretive, because he began to connect all of these dots. But the patent's right here for everyone to read, right? And I'll post it with you, post it when I post this video so everyone goes and reads it. The ability to make the Ormus from the 3D molecular gold to the monoatomic state gold. So what is going on over here, y'all? Okay, so here's where we get to take a step above and think as God creator, the allness, and the allness having multiple representations. The allness has multiple representations, and our ability to see and comprehend the allness is directly tied to our knowledge of the multiple organizing structures that the allness can actually take and self-organize in. So in our 3D materiality, we understand that the allness can arrange itself in a logical fashion that has certain material and chemical characteristics. But in 3D, these characteristics are malleable, but they're very local, right? It's a thing that you hold, the gold. It's a thing that you hold, a phone, and you operate in the material and in the dense to move it around, and how you structure it is what gives it its characteristics. You can make it hard, you can make it soft, you can make it transduce electricity, right? Nevertheless, we are beginning to understand and realize that the allness can also self-structure itself in another cadence that is also logical and ordered and useful, that is monoatomic. And at this point, the monoatomic state of matter is multidimensional. The monoatomic state of matter can exist in multiple realms at the same time. When he waited, it disappeared. When you eat it, you're eating the food of angels. When you eat it, you quote unquote go into another realm. Why? Because if God is everything, there is a facet of God that is also omnipresent and multidimensional. Why would we assume that there's one system for locality, aka what we understand that matter is, and a completely different system for multidimensionality? It makes no sense that they're different systems. If it's God, it's true elsewhere. Sorry, if it's God, it's true everywhere. So it is so what's the lock? It's our understanding of what materiality is. We've only tied materiality to locality, but in fact, materiality, right, is actually a representation of the allness of God. And in its different structures, it has multiple characteristics. And in the monoatomic state, it's multidimensional. In its monoatomic state, it's energetical. So keep holding this thought with me. Keep holding this. Human beings ate the bread of angels. He sent them all the food that they could eat. Again, right? Whether it's Christ, that it was the rock that they were eating, or whether it's the bread of angels, or whether it's the mufkuts, it's completely stating that's a thing from another realm. The angels don't have physicality, right? They're light only. And they ate the bread of the angels. They ate the thing that feeds the light body. It is the food of the light body. And it's not necessarily the white powder, but the multidimensional characteristics of the white powder, the manna, the food of angels, feeds the light body. And when you activate your light body, you can start receiving and organizing larger amounts of ka, so that we unlock the multidimensional capacity within us. And that's why I started with the exercise. So you see that that invisible energy has tangibility. That invisible energy has tangibility, or that local tangibility has multidimensional energetical properties. This is the food of the light body. One of the ways that you can feed it, obviously being in the presence of God in worship and in nature and the sun, also feed the light body. But this manna, this monoatomic gold in powder form, that by definition is multidimensional, feeds the light body. And as you do that, this exercise that we just did gets denser and denser and denser and denser. So you are hosting this multidimensional energy. And the more the scientists kept looking at the orbitally rearranged monatomic elements, they realized that we have that inside of our brain already by birth. There's already monatomic gold inside of us by birth. We had lost the ability to make more, and continuing to feed ourselves with it. But that's what it's for, you guys. So you can receive and organize larger amounts of multidimensional energy and information in your physical body so you can have the energy to be multidimensional. So we mediate between realms. And hold that right there, the mediation between realms. So thanks for holding on with me. I know that this is like a lot of stuff. Let's keep going. Oh, and by the way, it's not just the Egyptians and the Hebrews that talk about this stuff. The Yeah, in Indian alchemy, in Ayurveda, it's called the Swarna Bashama or the gold ash. In Old Mesopotamian, it's called the Shemana or the Highward Firestone. In Norse cultures, it was called the Idun. She is Idun, and she feeds golden apples that would give the warriors and the deities extra powers of intuition and life expansion. The Chinese Taoists call it the Jin Dan or the golden elixir. The Tibetan Buddhists call it the sacred gold powders that feed the rainbow body. So it's multiple cultures that talk about this knowledge. Okay. It gets deeper, it gets weirder. Let's go back to Melchizedek and Abraham. Melchizedek comes out and starts talking to Abraham to give him the blessing of the Most High God. Melchizedek is one of the ones without start or without finish, with no genealogy. The King of Peace, the starter of the order of Melchizedek, even though Jesus is the high priest, he started it. So this being, without beginning or end, can just come in between realms to interact with humans and give them blessings. And the blessing that he gives Abraham is an echo of communion. As he blesses him in the name of the Most High God, he gives them wine and bread. But in Kabbalistic and in esoteric circles, Melchizedek is also the one that administers the gold. And we usually associate the administering of gold to mean only wealth. But what I'm proposing here is that it means way more than just wealth. Rather, it's also the mufkuds, the manna, the food of the light body. And as you can see, there's always all of these clues in art, right? There's a blessing when he brings it to God for the bread, right? Like that doesn't look like bread, does it? To give it this multidimensionality and be part of the blessing that he would give to Abraham. I love this depiction because they make it explicit. Here's the wine, here's the bread, and here's the other thing. Look at the shape. It's the same shape as manna, it's the same color as the mufkuds, and it's already shining. So it is part of this proto-communion that Melchizedek gave to Abraham. And part of the blessing is that then Abraham will now be placed in a cosmic context because his descendants would be as great as the stars. And if you can count the stars, that's as great as your descendants would be. In feeding him the light body, Abraham becomes multidimensional. And now the cosmic context of his promises make way more sense. There is so much to Abraham that we still don't know, y'all. But it's gonna come, it's beginning to come. Melchizedek is also known as the purifier of light, as one of the 24 elders in the throne. The priest that mediates between realms. And in order to mediate between realms, your being or your consciousness has to have a multi-realm structure. So this makes sense. Gets weirder. It gets weirder. Let's go to Jesus and the Magi. Right? Matthew 2:11, the child was with Mary, and the Magi fell down and worshipped him. Then opening their treasures, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So I did a study in the rest of Matthew and in the Gospels. Every time that they will talk about gold as currency, they will call it the denarius, right? That was the actual name of the gold money, right? It was the denarius or the aureus or even the Herodian coins. And in Matthew itself, in the parables, it talks about the denarius. So this gold, Matthew is going out of his way to not call it money. And when you mix it with the frankincense and the myrrh that have to this day been associated with holiness and presence, might it be an echo of Moses combining the white powder from the melted gold with water to make a cake? Why would Jesus the child need a utilitarian gift of coins? Okay. A further clue is that in Latin Catholic tradition, we know the name of the Magi: Casper, Balthasar, and Melchior. And Melchior is the one that gives him the gold. Melchi-or. Sounds a lot like Melkisedec, doesn't it? And by the way, or is the root word for gold. In Spanish is oro. In the periodic table of the elements is au, au, Melchior. Melchior, giving him the Prince of Peace that brings the gold to the baby Jesus so he can start ingesting the food of angels and have multidimensional properties from the beginning. It ain't money. Otherwise, he would say denarius, like, or Herodian coins, like in everywhere else in the Gospels. It ain't money. Melchior, the Magi of Melchior, brings the meal of gold. So the baby Jesus can begin his multidimensional self, feeding his light body, so he can grow in favor with man and with God, so he can begin to know who he is. That's a very interesting question that I want to ask us. What happens if we eat it now? What do you mean eat it now? Yup, David Hudson made a recipe before he disappeared. I have been spending years on this stuff, and I finally have the release from God to talk about it because we've connected a lot of dots. David Hudson made a recipe before he disappeared. And there is some science about the eating of the monatomic gold. Not a lot, but some. There is an institute in Switzerland called the Alpha Learning Institute that has the best, most comprehensive study that I've seen, and I'll share it with y'all so you read it yourselves, about what happens when you eat the monatomic gold with the Hudson recipe. And obviously what happens is crazy. The Alpha Learning Institute, they are one of the best scientists in terms of reading brainwaves. They have the world's largest, or at least to the point of when the study was made, the world's largest database of brain scans. So whenever that they have a new brain scan that comes in, they're able to compare it against one of the biggest databases to see how much it deviates from the norm. So they did a study in which they grabbed, I think, 10 people and fed them the monatomic gold. They call it the Ethereum gold, multiple times, right, in a controlled environment with a placebo and then a gold, and would read the brainwaves. So before the gold, when they read the brainwaves, they would easily see that the brain hemispheres were not synchronized, right? Some people had more left and more right. But as soon as the monatomic gold, wrong button. Oh yeah, oh, that's just the link to the gold, to the study, right? I'll share that with you guys later. But as soon as they would eat it, no, as soon as it would touch the saliva, then the brain hemispheres sync. In a matter of seconds, the brain hemispheres sync. And the literature of syncing the right and the left brain hemispheres in terms of activity at delta, at theta, at alpha, and at beta, this synchronization is then what unlocks, quote unquote, secret powers like intuition, like understanding beyond what is objective and present, what takes you into meditative realms, what, yeah, precognition, intuition, cardionosis, astral travel, a knowing that's outside of time. These are all of the things that happen when we sync the brain waves at delta, theta, alpha, and beta. And I'm going to go deeper into this another time because there's way more very interesting science here, especially the ratios of syncing between each of these. But at a high level, this is what the study suggested. And it had very dramatic impacts in intuition, in memory retention, in physical capability, in flexibility, in proprioception, like knowing where your body is in space, knowing where your consciousness is in a higher realm, right, in the meditative space. And they're saying that they say prove that it takes you to a brain state that only decades of experience meditation will take you to in seconds. And it's beginning to make sense because the monatomic gold is it's the multidimensional capacity of the portion of the allness called gold. Okay, now a very important question. Where can I get it? Where can you actually get it right now? I've looked in a lot of places and I only trust two places. One is called Harmonic Enterprises, which is the actual company that the Alpha Learning Institute used for the study, but they've been sold out for like a year and a half. And the other one is called Monatomic Gold. And I'm not associated with them. I want to be, but I'm not associated with them. It's called monatonicOrm.com. And they say that they have the Hudson recipe. And I'll tell you guys, I've been eating this one. It is so intense, y'all. It is so intense. I don't know if you can see it right here. I have it right here. The powder in the bottom, and then the water for it to be dissolved. And it's obviously white, right? And the first time I tried it, nothing happened. And I did like two whole vials of it and like nothing happened. Years later, once I connected all of these dots, this time that I've done it, it is so intense. The meditations are so deep. The clarity of who I'm interacting with in heavenly places is insanely detailed. And my whole body rises in heat and I'm buzzing, just like buzzing. And you have to meditate. It's so intense that if you that there's like a deep hunger inside of you to meditate because it wants to take you there. It wants to take you there. It wants to take you there. It wants to take you there because it's multidimensional. It wants to take you there initially when it touches your saliva. And if you don't do it, then I get dizzy and buzzy and I kind of like lose it. But if I sit down and let it take me there, I feel the ka as dense as I ever felt it. I can do this exercise with my whole body. And as soon as I sit down, I'm gone. So I'm not telling you what to do. And this is definitely not medical advice. I am merely presenting to you an interesting possibility. And yeah, it's not cheap. Um, but it gets weirder. What matters is how you eat it. It's not a supplement. It's not a vitamin. What matters is how you eat it. So I want to talk about communion for a second. When Jesus does the communion, he is giving us to partake of himself. The wine is his blood. Speaking of the new covenant, the bread represents his body, the healing. But my question is, how much of the body of Christ are we partaking with? Are we only communing with his physical body? Or are we also communing with his light body? Are we also communing with his transfigured body? Are we also communing and remembering and partaking in the Jesus that was slain before the foundations of the earth? The Jesus in which the allness of God was made for him and through him. Is that Christ? Is that part of his body? Are we also communing with that part of him? Or do we limit ourselves to just the physical body? What Jesus do you partake in with when you take communion? I want I want to also eat of his light body and remember that and be one with that as well. I love this one again because it goes out of its way to make two breads. The one that looks like manna, the one that looks like the white powder, and then the body one, the physical body one, and the light body one. I love this Last Supper painting by Dali, where he is going out of his way to show the multidimensionality of the body. It is not only the body that's physical, that's the one here, but the body above the realm. That's the one that you can also partake with. Okay. So now I'm going to go through a couple of verses in Jesus's own words, y'all. Just, it's a mystery. Okay, this is a mystery. Let let Jesus's own words just wash over you. Just let it wash over you as we go through this. This is his own words of this mystery of communion that we're unlocking. The multidimensionality of eating the God that's not just local. I have food you do not know of. Then Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst. I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. To the one who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone with a new name written on the stone that no one knows except the one who receives it. It's the same imagery, y'all. I counsel you, this is Jesus saying this, I counsel you to buy, right? And I did the study, it also means acquire or receive. I counsel you to acquire or receive from me gold refined in the fire, so you can become rich, and white clothes to wear, so you can cover your nakedness, and salve to put on your eyes so you can see. Partaking with Jesus's light body, not just his physical body. So what am I saying? What am I actually saying with all of this? Like, what am I actually saying? I'm saying that the monoatomic gold feeds your light body the way the wine and the bread feed your physical body. It just does. But I'm also saying that part of the communion with Christ, the entanglement and the remembering with Christ is beyond just this bread body, but also with his light body, by ritualistically taking the communion and adding to it, eating the monoatomic gold. And in that communion, we build our multidimensionality, Christochaic light body in his image. In his image. And as we grow in his image, we move from the whom an to the ka'auri an. Ka, light body, auri, gold, and then an, essence. We go from whom, the one made from the earth, to the one that also has the golden light of life. And if you stay with me through the craziness, I'm going to open up and very much so in the next year or so. We're growing in his likeness from human to ka'auri an. And guess what we do with that Christochaic energy? We begin to organize it via fractality. And I'm going to talk about fractality in the next session. And we not only have a physical body, but we also have a light body where our consciousness can then be either placed on the physicality, or our consciousness can be placed in the multidimensionality. The Merkaba being the most traditional Christochaic structure in which your consciousness can actually be embedded in and then have a multidimensional context of your being, just like Jesus. And as our light body has more and more Christochaic energy, it begins to intersect with other existing kaic structures. And the more energy we're able to host through communion with Jesus's light body, the more fractality we can receive, the more energy that we can then connect with other existing structures in the other realms. On heaven as it is in earth, as above, so below. This is the flow of governance. This is a main tenet of the order of Melkisedec, to mediate between realms. In order to mediate between the realms, you need to have a vehicle to have your consciousness be in multiple realms. The monoatomic gold in its multidimensionality is able to resonate with other structures, almost in a superconductive way that are entangled outside of space and time. And it's a superconductive entanglement where the energy flows forever between monatomic structures. So in order for us to bring heaven to earth, or to mediate the above to the below and the below to the above, the eternal hermetic principle, we need to be able to entangle our light body to other light-based structures in the other realms, aka the heavenly places, or the etheric realms, or the heavenly infrastructure. The more the Christochaic energy, the more multidimensionality that we can be a conduit of. And that way we can be a priest in the order of Melchizedek, mediating between realms. So think about the heavenly places as there's a whole bibliography on what heavenly places can be. These new ones that I'm going to are like uh, uh, etheric energy that hasn't fully been developed into a place, a proto-heavenly place that is looking for the flow of governance to become. But there's also ones that are already structured, like thrones. These are heavenly places that we can access via the light body, because by definition is multidimensional. Thrones. There are councils. This is The River of Life by William Blake. Quote unquote, going to heaven. There is existing infrastructure already built. There are congregations already happening. Thrones and councils and congregations and infrastructure and energy waited to be molded by the order of Melchizedek into a heavenly place. And the means by which we bring heaven to earth is how much Christochaic energy exists within our light body so that we can be in both places. And if we can't mediate between the realms. We're just following him and being made in his likeness. And I'll leave you with this one. In Revelation 21, when it's talking about the New Jerusalem, it says, and the city was pure gold, like clear glass. It's in its monoatomic state, in its multidimensional state, in its kaic state. And it hasn't represented itself yet in 3D because the time is about to come. But we can intersect, embed, govern, and flow with all of these heavenly places and heavenly structures within the order of Melchizedek to the degree that we take the communion of light and partake of Jesus's light body. And if you want to do it through the symbol of the gold, the way that we do the wine and the bread, we can do that. So I trust you guys. You wouldn't be here if the only thing that you wanted to hear was stuff that you already knew. You wouldn't be here. You're here because you've been seeking. And I know many of you already know some of this stuff. I already know because we've been talking. But I trust you to hold what we just talked about it and open it up at the pace in which Holy Spirit is teaching you. I'll be honest with you, it took me like a couple of years. The first time nothing happened, and then now the second time I'm flying. So I trust you guys to agree. I trust you to disagree, to process. But these are the secrets of the House of Light. And there's way more that I want to share. So let's stop right here and pray. Okay? Just join me in just praying. God, thank you for your secrets. Thank you for the game of pursuing you that brings you pleasure. Thank you for the relationship that the more we ask, the more we get. Thank you for this very pleasurable, mystical game. Jesus, and we ask that you lead us in a way that we can become more of you. We want to continue to grow in the likeness of you. And when we take communion with your whole body, the allness body, not just the earth body, the allness body in all its multidimensionality and all of its glory. So it can be remembered within hours. We take the blessing of the light body. We take the communion of your light body into our energetical system, and we grow the Ka into a Christochaic, Jesus-like body to mediate between realms as the blessing of the order of Melkisedec. We thank you. We thank you for the new and the old, and we thank you for the mysteries, and we say yes and amen. Woo. All right. I'm just gonna leave this one right here. On the next session, it'll be the last one of House of Light. But I'm going to talk about fractality and Jesus being the key fractal to all fractals. I'm going to talk about glory, how the Ka transforms itself to the Kabod, and more of the architecture of heavenly places and the paths of splendor.